Great. Well, thanks everyone again for joining. We're here to talk about careers in impact investing. I'm Raresh Pamphil, and hello from Transylvania, which is where I'm spending a few weeks with this terracotta stove behind me. People keep asking what the scenery is. And I lead a project called Impact Acre, which is a marketplace for impact investing. We launched in April with support from Barclays, and we are powered by Delia, which is a Welsh fintech. And we convene a range of organizations in the sector who can share and browse impact deals. So we have currently 10 funds and 10 direct deals featured. That's 300 million worth of opportunities and over 50 members that have signed up. More on that on our website, and thanks again to those who've applied to our openings, where we'll start interviews soon. But we're here today to talk about careers, and for that I've reached out to some of our contacts, both within the kind of Agora ecosystem as well as more broadly in the sector. And what we'll do is we'll hear from each of them for 5 to 10 minutes. We have Q&A open now, so you can ask questions throughout. And I'll kind of bring in the questions both as we do the initial remarks and towards the end. Because we have a few speakers, we won't have as much time for Q&A, but thanks to the 20 or 30 people who have shared their questions in advance, those have been shared with the speakers, and we'll go through them as much as we can. And thanks for that. And just one comment on why we're here and the idea behind this event. We had a panel, I guess, a couple months ago, and we heard from Big Society Capital and Nesta how they're successfully making investments during COVID. But we actually, around the time we put our job up, I also noticed that quite a few organizations were hiring. So we wanted to help the 200 or so people who applied for our roles and give them a list of other options as well as perspectives from the sector. And as you'll see, their backgrounds are quite varied. So certainly Ian and Sophie will speak about their current openings. Our other panels will speak about other openings they've had or will have, as well as careers in general. So without further ado, we'll kick it off with Ian. And I will pause this screen share so you can see us well, but I will just say at the end, you'll get this list of current openings in the follow-up email, and it's also available at this URL you can see here. So you'll get the URLs over email, and so you don't need to worry about Googling specific openings right now as we speak. Cool. So Ian, over to you. And the first question, I guess, for you and all the attendee, all our panelists, is tell us a bit about your organization, your current openings, and what might be coming next.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and thanks, Raresh, for inviting me to participate in this. And so, in terms of overall, Acre, the company I work for, are a sustainability specialist recruitment firm, and they have been for 23 years now. That covers a variety of different areas. I lead the team that focus on sustainable and impact investing recruitment. And so we recruit fundamentally for any role across public and private markets where you're using one or more sustainability theme as a driver of value through to more explicitly impact aligned strategies. So that can be investment directors, fund managers, portfolio managers, as well as the more specialist roles around ESG and impact measurement. And then the other piece we're starting to see a lot more of in the last year and a half are the more commercial roles that sit around these funds and strategies and help them grow as a result. And we work both with large organizations that are looking to incorporate these philosophies as a means of transition and launching specialist products, as well as subject matter experts who are on more of a boutique end and are scaling as a result of this being all they do, as well as early stage startup funds. So there's quite a range there to unpack. We're based in London. We've also got team members in the Netherlands and across in New York. And broadly, there's three buckets, I suppose, that we recruit for. And generally, we are brought in as specialist experts. And so the kind of roles that we hire will have people who we'll search for people who have that in-depth specialist expertise around one or more sustainability-driven themes through to the more impact specific side, and they can either be a hands-on investment role or those ancillary roles that support that. That said, in terms of overall hiring trends, we're also seeing, I suppose, kind of more generalist hiring happening in and around these more specialist teams, where there's the opportunity to move into this space without necessarily having that in-depth technical expertise that ultimately we're paid to find. In terms of what we've seen over the last, 3 to 5 years, there's been a gradual increase in demand for these types of skills, as you would imagine, as the sector has started to grow and become a more ubiquitous type of requirement that investors look for. In the last probably 8 to 9 months, it's been quite interesting seeing that kind of growth in demand start to plateau a little bit coming through COVID, particularly with the large organizations who have been on hiring freezes as a function of, I suppose, kind of an operational risk management perspective. But now we're starting to see that unwind a little bit, and it does seem to be that the more sustainable or impact-orientated roles within those larger organizations are among the more likely ones to be signed off. And also, the kind of the pulse that we're taking from the market at the moment points to more activity coming through in Q4 in terms of mandates coming through that then facilitates hiring for boutiques, as well as the large organizations starting to unlock their hiring freezes and put some strategic initiatives into play that will result in more recruitment, particularly at a senior level, that may otherwise have happened earlier in the year that have been on hold. In terms of the other, a couple of the questions that the Raresh was able to share earlier on, I mean, the obvious one for us, most of our jobs are listed on our website, or probably about half of them. And so a good thing to do is go to the website and have a look through. And then the best thing to do is to get in touch and have a conversation with the most relevant consultant, who will be the person advertising the types of jobs that you feel meet your profile. And then it's about building that relationship over time. So we've got a good understanding of who you are, what you do, and also what you want to do. And then we can bear that in mind in ongoing discussions with clients. And as this space continues to evolve, it's quite often the case where there are very few people with the exact subject matter expertise for a lot of our searches. So it does involve being more creative and having a good understanding of the broader talent that's out there and helping to join the dots as a function of the consultancy part of our role. And so it's always worth getting in touch and having a conversation if you have skills that could be useful as a function of the roles that we're advertising. And then the other piece that I would say just generally in terms of how you're positioning a search in this space or trying to find your next role is to really think through kind of the types of the values and the purpose that drive how you want to build your career, and finding an organization that fits and aligns to that. Because with a space like this that's evolving quite rapidly, your role's most likely to change over time as a function of that company growing. And so it's important to have that alignment in terms of the core values and purpose, as I said, and then be prepared for your career to evolve as a result, but likely to grow with the opportunities that will present themselves as these organizations continue to grow as well.
Great. And Ian, I know you have some openings currently. Can you speak a little bit about that and the profiles you're looking for there?
Well, yeah, I mean, we've got, just looking through the list, we've got about 20 projects on the go at the moment, and about a third of those are currently open for applications, and there is a bit of a range. We kicked off a search this morning, more on the investor relations side, for a private equity impact fund, and that's actually one where we're very happy to look at are more transferable skills. So people that have got investor relations experience, but not necessarily within the impact side. Another search we're working on, again on the client facing side, is a client director position for an asset manager to help them develop how they're working with clients across their institutional sustainable equity funds on the listed side. And then another project we just launched last week, which is quite interesting, is around a new product launch for a biodiversity stroke biocircularity fund, where we're going to be looking for a fund manager and a senior analyst to be part of that fund that's due to launch in Q4. So there is quite a range, and we see a variety of mandates on an ongoing basis, really. So I think the headline is more, if you have skills that fit into one of those three buckets that I mentioned, then it's worth being on our radar more generally, but also keep an eye on the jobs that are on the website, I would say.
And maybe we'll come back to you, Ian, with some more questions as we go through the other panelists and get more Q&A. So let's turn over to Sophie, and and I know a lot of the roles and work that you do is also in the public markets and a bit closer to what Ian is doing. So Sophie, tell us about Rathbone Greenbank Investments and also some of the roles you have open.
Great, thanks Raresh, and hi everyone, and thanks for inviting us to do this. I think it's a great event and definitely something that I would have been very grateful to have in the diary when I was looking for roles in this area. So I'm a senior ethical, sustainable and impact researcher at Rathbone Greenbank, and for those of you who don't know us, we are the dedicated ethical, sustainable and impact investment team within Rathbones, which is a FTSE 250 company. And at Greenbank, we have 1.6 billion in assets under management, and we provide an investment management service to our mix of private clients, charity and university trustees, and also professional advisors. We create bespoke portfolios for clients depending on their unique sustainability and financial requirements. And the team has actually been doing this for a really long time. We started to do this type of investing in the late 1990s, although that's obviously carried on evolving over the years, but some of the parts of it are really kind of the same, the nuts and bolts. And our team is made up of just over 30 sustainable investment and research specialists, although I will come on to say that that number is going to be fast increasing. And most of our team at the moment are based in Bristol, although we also have a few people in London and Liverpool as well. So really brief background, I thought it'd be helpful just to talk briefly about how I've come to this role, because I know that can always be helpful to sort of learn about different people's routes to certain roles. So I started my career at Barclays Bank in 2013 and left after a few years to transition into this field kind of broadly via a master's at Imperial College London, which was in environmental technology, specialising in business and environment. I'm a huge advocate for that course, so if anyone is interested to learn more in that, please do get in touch. And then most recently have spent the last 4 years at a strategy consulting firm specialising in sustainable and impact investment. And I work there with foundations, investors, NGOs on lots of different strategy and research projects. And I think that that's an interesting thing just to mention, because I think, as Ian said, there's lots of different roles now coming up in this area. And one of them, you know, I really do think you don't have to necessarily have that traditional investment training for a lot of the roles that are now out there. So my role at Greenbank is around analysing the social and environmental impact of our investments, but also managing our engagement activities to drive better company performance on a wide variety of issues. And I also do a lot of the impact reporting and our sustainability reporting to clients. So kind of getting on a bit more now to, you know, what are we currently hiring for? So we're going through a really exciting phase of expansion at the moment, and we are currently hiring for 4 roles in the Greenbank team. There's 3 that Raresh has kindly shared as part of this, and I'll speak briefly to, but the one that's probably the most relevant is one that isn't quite ready to share yet, but we will be hiring for in the next couple of months. So before I just talk to those, I just wanted to say a couple of general points about Greenbank and things that I guess really attracted me. I only joined in January, before I go into the specifics. I think the first thing to say is really everyone in the team shares the passion for how capital can be used for a force for good, and really understands the wider social and environmental issues that are at play. And I'd say that's even true you know, if you're going into the investment side of the role, you know, you really need to have that interest in the bigger picture and how your investments are really making a difference. A couple of other features that I just wanted to mention that I think are quite unique about Green Banks, especially for the investment management industry. Firstly, there's a great work-life balance, and the company is very supportive of flexible working, obviously during the COVID era, but even prior to that, we have several members of the team that work reduced hours to fit around their families and other commitments, both male and female. And I think just a final thing to say there, I think we have a really nice blend of being part of a much bigger company with Rathbones, but also operating quite independently as a smaller team. Within that, so you know, you really do feel the benefits of being part of a small organisation, but also the benefits of being part of a large. And as someone who's worked for a multinational and a startup, that is something I definitely appreciate. So just going into the specifics now, the 3 roles that we're currently hiring for that are live at the moment are all at varying levels, but all in the investment team. And you can find more details on all of those by visiting the Rathbones website. So we have one at quite a junior level, which is the client service executive role. We also have a trainee investment manager role and an investment manager role that we're hiring for. And really the difference between those is the level of experience on the investment side, although only the investment manager role actually requires certification to level 6 or 7 of CISI. And the others, really what we're looking for is the desire to undertake further study and a real interest in progressing down that line. But I want to spend a bit more time focusing on the impact analyst role, because that's really the most relevant one to the discussion today. So Green Bank has been making impact first style investments since really the late 1990s, but we're now looking to grow our impact investment proposition to really meet the growing demand that we're seeing from clients. So this is a really great opportunity. It'll be the first person in the team who'll be fully dedicated to this type of investing. And what we're really looking for is someone who will be able to identify and source impact-driven investment opportunities, and also potentially work with external partners, the likes of which are several of them on this call today, to really understand, you know, how we can grow that proposition, and also carry out, you know, due diligence and monitor investments and be responsible for the reporting. So I think it's a really, really exciting opportunity. It's going to need a lot of building relationships, both internally and externally, and throughout the wider organisation. And really starting to build our brand in that area. So in terms of the experience and skills, and the job description will be shared shortly, so you'll be able to get more information. But just to pick out on a couple of things, I think one big thing to say is that although we are ideally looking for a financial qualification, it's not a kind of prerequisite. But as I said with the investment roles, there will need to be a willingness to undertake further study if you didn't have that there. And then I think just sort of other things that really, really stand out are things like kind of proven ability to build new relationships and partnerships. Obviously that interest in impact investment, and I think that's, you know, that really can't be said enough. You know, we really want someone who really passionately kind of cares about this and making a positive difference. And then also kind of strong financial analytical skills, and the others I think are all quite kind of generic, but those ones I really wanted to highlight. I just want to very briefly finish with a couple of words of advice. The first one was really going to be about the fact that lots of people are coming from a wide variety of backgrounds, and I think there is increasingly a space for lots of diverse skills and backgrounds. So I would really encourage you to apply, even if you don't have the traditional training. And as Ian said, you know, there's now roles on the kind of strategy side, but also research. The team that I'm in, you know, that is really open to people without that traditional investment experience. And the other thing I'd just say is perseverance is really key. I think it's an increasingly competitive field. And, you know, to find the right role, when I was, you know, wanting to move to Bristol, you know, it did take some time, and it is going to take some time, and that's the reality. So have kind of conversations, attend events like this, but don't kind of give up if that's your passion. And then I just wanted to finally end by saying, you know, we really do need people and new ideas coming into this sector. more now than ever before. There's some really ambitious targets that we've got ahead of us, a lot of them happening kind of within this decade now. So yeah, just really encourage you to try hard to get in here, and it's really exciting field to be part of, and we definitely need you. So I'm happy to answer any other questions at the end.
Great. Well, Sophie, you managed to cover a lot of ground there in terms of your organization, the current roles and the upcoming roles, and just some reminders for those who joined later. We have over 100 people dialed in now, so thanks to everyone for making the time. We will share this list of roles with you over email. It will go out automatically 24 hours from now. And it will have this URL. When you click into that Google Doc, you will find a link to all these roles, and that's basically the extent of the slides. So there's nothing else we'll need to share other than the recording, which you can also share with your friends. So also I wanted to quickly share with you the results from our opening poll, which you should have on your screens now. And there's 4 questions. Not sure how you flick through the 4 answers, but I do have them on my screen here as well, if that's easier. So we asked people about their background and their experience, as well as where they'd like to work. I'll let each of you take what you want from these findings. Meanwhile, we will soon turn to Rod Schwartz from ClearlySo. And ClearlySo is another organization like Rathbones Green Bank that's been around for over 10 years in the space. I'll let Rod tell you more about that. And has, unlike some of the public markets asset managers, has worked exclusively with high growth impact businesses. So Rod, tell us a bit about ClearlySo and also about careers at ClearlySo.
Yes, thank you very much, Raresh, and thank you for having me on the panel. They say you should never start with an apology, but I have to start with an apology. I chipped my tooth eating pizza yesterday, and I could only find the dentist. I'm in Zurich today, so at 6 o'clock, so I have 6 o'clock my time, so I have to race out, and I won't be here for the end, so I apologize for that. But if anybody does want to get in touch, my email is rod@clearlyso.com. Pretty simple. What is ClearlySo? ClearlySo is Europe's largest impact investment bank. What that means is that we intermediate capital between investors on the one side and either high impact enterprises or funds on the other side. So very few people know that we also do impact funds, but we've done about 30 mandates so far in impact funds. And we've done probably over 200 mandates for enterprises. We're based in London. There's about 20 of us. We're ourselves a limited company, so we are in a sense what we advocate. Big Society Capital, who are on the panel, are one of our shareholders. Our largest is Octopus Investments. We also have a large family office and 55 other smaller investors who represent people interested in impact or entrepreneurs we've helped or a whole range of, or cousins and uncles, that sort of thing. So very much we are what we advocate. We work now across Europe, which is why I'm here. We originate mandates both from impact funds and also enterprises now all across Europe. 2/3 of our investor base is now based outside of the UK in Europe. I know in the beginning we were largely known for our angel work, but that angel work is now a smaller and smaller portion of what we do. In fact, probably 97% of the capital we raise is from institutional investors. And we reckon that we have helped clients to raise about £400 million to date over the last 6 years, although we started the company in 2008, same week Lehman collapsed, which is a bit of poetry. I don't think there's anything else to say about ClearlySo that I won't say later in answer to the questions that Raresh has asked. I find historically it's best to do what Raresh tells me to do. Our current openings, We have one that hasn't been announced yet, but I'm happy to announce it today. We're looking for somebody to join our education sector team. So we focus on 4 sectors: education, health, energy and the environment, and ethical consumerism or responsible consumerism. We only have one person in our education team. That's Chris Parsons, who also runs our enterprise banking business, and he's looking for a partner. I think that'd be a great role for somebody. But look, we're also expanding in the other sectors. So if you have a background in the health sector or the environmental sector, please get in touch. Again, rod@clearlyso.com. What skills are we looking for? So despite all the things that were said previously by the 2 speakers, I'm afraid we are looking for people who have experience, either corporate finance experience. So that means an ability to win and run deals. I think for the most part, that's what we're looking to hire now. That's where we really need to grow our business. Raresh also asked, how is ClearlySo unique? I have 5 answers to that. One is we're trying to build a successful investment bank, which means what it means just in financial terms, be growing and profitable. We're trying to build it in a sector that's very immature and still really, really, really small. It might be growing fast, but it's growing fast so that it's going from microscopic to very small. And we're trying to do it in a way where we avoid all the horrible things that investment banks tend always to become. So those are 3 very challenging goals, and I think we won't feel we'll have succeeded if we don't become a successful investment bank in the impact sector without becoming a horrible organization like Lehman. Second, we only do impact. Both the impact funds we do and the enterprises are only impact. Third, we don't have titles, so I can't give you any titles for any of the roles. They're just, you'll do deals in education, or you'll sell deals, or something like that. The 4th thing, and Raresh can confirm this, he was with us years ago and knows this well now, we're pretty open about more or less everything that's going on at the company. So unlike a lot of companies, you'll pretty much know what's going on. And finally, we operate at the edge of impact. So we operate in the space where the companies and funds we work with are typically generating market returns. We think that that's what most investors want and what most capital is looking for, and that's where we focus. Advice for candidates at this time, I would say try not to join, for the most part, unless you have the skills that are relevant, organizations like ours or the impact investment organizations. There's so few roles and so many people looking that it's going to be hard to find a job and you're just going to get demotivated. But there are a jillion, approximately, enterprises looking for great people. And I think what you should do is start with one of them, do something really great. If you ever want to come to an organization like ours afterwards, fine. But this is the best way to gain experience that's relevant and the easiest way to get into the sector. And finally, how to get in touch. I think that was your last question. If you have corporate finance experience and experience in the education sector, write me today, rod@clearlyso.com. If you have any other experience, just send your CV through the ClearlySo website. Thank you. That's my time.
Great. Well, first, thanks everyone for taking the time. Second, thanks for Rod for joining despite probably a painful tooth, and also for the very structured remarks. I was going to still a bit of time from Q&A at the end, and just give Rod an opportunity to answer one question, which I think is important in terms of the skill set for you mentioned corporate finance. Maybe you can give us some specific examples of people, of the backgrounds that you have on the team, and maybe bring it to life with specifics of what people would have done at a place like Big Four or another firm that makes them relevant or stand out among the crowd when they apply to ClearlySo.
Sure, I'll give you 3 examples of people who are performing at an outstanding level at ClearlySo. I don't mind telling their names, actually. One of the persons who runs enterprises, and he has the most obvious background. So he was at Rothschild and 10 years at Climate Change Capital, which is an environmentally focused investment bank. They went fut, but they had quite a good ride. And then he was 2 years at KPMG. So this is a serious, experienced corporate financier, really knows his stuff, knows how to win mandates, close deals, sell to investors. Most of the people we hire are either going to be investment bankers or salespeople, but we're fill up on salespeople right now. But the second are more interesting. So one is a woman called Letty Wheeler, who she was doing private equity deals in Palestine. And I reckoned that as the only woman in her organization and the only woman in the ecosystem, if she could do private equity deals in Palestine, then she could probably do private equity deals in Europe. And she's, you know, she's a hustler. And then a guy called David Gowanlock, who was had a background in engineering, but then sort of saw the light, got his MBA at IESA in Barcelona, and he was desperate to get into the field and sort of prostituted himself about to try to get any sort of role with any sort of organization, doing more or less anything, and eventually he hit upon us. So those are three very different examples. One hustler, one, you know, very normal, you know, sort of standard background, and one person who, yeah, I mentioned, I forgot which was the third now, but I think that answers your question.
It does. Great. Thanks again, Rod, and it's okay if you need to drop off early. Going back to, also Rod responded to some of the questions in line on the chat thread. Let's move on to Joanna, who works for Big Society Capital. And Joanna, I know you work on external engagement and partnerships. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the different things that BSC does, and also the different types of roles that people could join.
Sure, thanks, Ramesh. Hi, everybody. Nice to be here. I was trying to put myself into one of the three categories then of types of employees, but yeah, don't always fit the mold, do we? So in Big Society Capital, it's an independent impact investor in the UK, 75 employees, roughly speaking. We have a dual role, which is we exist to invest in high impact funds, but also to help build the market. As I was saying, it's still very small. We're a wholesaler, so we invest in funds only. We're being sort of replicated or adapted in our model across the world. So you'll see types of Big Society Capitals emerging in Japan, Portugal, Argentina. We've been going since 2012. And I would say we're very much a values-driven, sort of innovation-led type of organization. But also we have quite a big variety of people in terms of background. So we've got management consultants, charity background, government, international development, social enterprise, fundraising, you name it, private and market asset management, some banking, some policy, communications. In my role as a relationship director, there's a team of 3 of us bringing investors into our space and putting money in alongside ours. And so we're trying to build partnerships with a really quite a big group of people across the spectrum of capital, if you use the impact investment jargon. I've been in the role 3.5 years. Before that, I was a social entrepreneur since 2001 for my sins, and also a charity fundraiser. So I've done a bit of a jumping around type career so far. I think I was chosen for this role because of my insights into what it's like to be a social entrepreneur and what it's like to be working on the front line in a charity, but also the relationship building skills. So linked to that, what skills do we look for? We look for flexibility, entrepreneurship, the ability to adapt. 1 minute you're pitching a debt fund, the next minute you're talking about childhood obesity in London, and the next you're listening to the trustees of a £1 billion endowment. So you've got to be quite able to jump around and think on your feet and adapt to your audience. You can learn about our approach in we've got a learning and development framework, But I guess a couple of myths that I would want to bust is you don't have to have an investment background necessarily, as it's already been mentioned. We believe that those skills are easier to learn. We think that what is hard to learn is an understanding of what motivates people, quality of thinking, social motivation, and understanding of impact. So that really is what we look for in people. We've got 2 part-time roles at the moment that are open. They're not on the magic spreadsheet, I'm afraid, because they haven't yet gone live on our website. So if you have a look on our website this week, you should see them. But basically, one is a risk and operational readiness consultant, and the other is a senior advisor. They're both coming live very quickly because we're trying to do a fund of funds to address the issue of rough sleeping in the UK after COVID. So many rough sleepers who are coming out of hotels during the COVID lockdown and are going to be faced with homelessness once again. So there's a big nationwide campaign, and we're looking at how impact investing can play a role in that rehousing process. That's fairly typical of how we work. Start with an issue, then look at how you can tackle it. Can impact investment play a role, and can funds be developed to do so? So it's quite an unusual way of working, which I think we all enjoy. Last but not least, what's my advice to you as candidates for this space? So I would have similar advice to what's already been mentioned, but one is definitely research the ecosystem, understand the actors in it. There's not only the asset owners, there's also the advisors, the consultants, there's the infrastructure development, there's not just the fund managers, there's the social enterprises, as was mentioned before. The second is play to your strengths. There's not only financial types that are needed, you really need to think about what you're good at and where you can add value. And the third is build on your experience. I think it was mentioned as well, but at the moment there's a huge need for volunteers in social enterprises. There's a lot of people having a really hard time, and if you go on something like the 4, there's a database where you can volunteer as a skilled volunteer. They need strategy, they need finance, they need marketing. If you can help some social enterprises through these tough times and then put it on your CV, then it's a bit of a win-win. So I would recommend that. Thanks, that's all for me for now.
Great, and I can attest that Big Society Capital is one of the organizations that really does hire from diverse backgrounds. I think quite a few of the investment managers there don't have strictly a background in finance, but they do have an understanding of these social issues like homelessness and public health, as you said, and that actually makes for a good investment manager when you're trying to solve these problems. So keep that in mind too. And I also agree with you that there's a range of functions out there. I put it deliberately in my poll that people may want to consider marketing or project management or partnerships, and you'll be very much involved in the same deals, just bringing kind of different skills. So on that note, let's turn over to Amir, who has a diverse career. He prior to his current role at Comic Relief, he was an investment manager at Cap Venturesome for 4.5 years. Amir, can you maybe tell us a bit about your career and previous roles, as well as cover some of the questions that have come through?
Yeah, sure. Firstly, it's really hard going last after all those speakers and trying to come up with something original. So I'll do my best. Also, apologies, I don't have any live roles to kind of offer you guys as well. So again, double apologies on that side. But I had the traditional route of coming from the finance sector. Well, one of the traditional routes come from the finance sector into social investment. So between 2008 and 2014, I was working in the city, and then was starting to look around, not being too happy. And then I stumbled upon a job at Cap Venturesome, and kind of almost like a juniorish role. So first thing first is this transition may not be painless, depending if you're coming from finance. investment banking sector, you're going to have to really ask yourself a question as to whether you're going to be able to handle potentially cutting your salary by 30-40%, depending on what the roles are. Because I think one of the first things which I totally underappreciated coming from that side to this side is how diverse and broad the sector is. So when we think about social investment, impact investment, they're almost two different concepts. And within that, depending on whether you're working in a foundation or an investment fund or like ClearlySo or Big Society Capital, your stakeholders will be different, your networks will be different, your roles will be very different. So you really need to do your homework and understand what's going on. And lucky for you, there's a lot more in the sector to help you for that than there was when I first joined, where it was a bit of a murky mystery as well. So really use the resources out there, and it's to your benefit to understand that. I would say going from in terms of some like early findings, it was for me the early. I'm going to give you very honest here. The early periods of working in the sector were very tough. Going from doing big multi-million-pound deals to doing small, tiny little social investment deals it's going to be a massive change, right? And you're almost going to have to park your ego at the door, because there's no way that you're going to kind of adapt into the sector if you're going to be constantly thinking about how it was in the investment banking sector if you come from that background. But also, I think some of the skill sets that Joe mentioned is absolutely, like, I agree with 100%. And some of the things that I think that you really need to be doing is around adaptability, empathy levels. You'll be connecting on really tough social issues, so you really need to show that you're genuinely there for what's essentially the impact of where this investment's going. But I would say what you would benefit from is, depending on where you work, naturally you're going to be working in an environment where it's going to be very fast moving, very hands-on early on as well. In the 6 years I've been in the sector, I've done a lot in terms of what's out there. So if you're up for an adventure and you want to be hands-on, it's the space to be. And I think there's a lot where responsibility is given to you. I can only talk from my experiences. So essentially, I've been working in the UK social investment market, which differs from likes of Acre or some of the other funds out there in terms of the environment. So this wasn't kind of meant to be kind of broadly every single thing. But I would definitely think that the UK social investment market has been growing exponentially since I've grown, in terms of the number of actors out there, the number of organizations and funds. The points being raised continually about, do I need to come from an investment background? No, like, you just have to be very logical, good with numbers. And most of all, I've met a diverse range of people who have come back from backgrounds where it's history, architecture, English language. I mean, they've been fantastic. So I think that the soft skills are where it's at. A few people have mentioned, do I need to do programs or EVPA certificates? So no as well. Sorry, I'm being quite blunt, because the return on investment on what you're paying for that is minimal at best. So I would say focus on your experience, focus on their softer skills. You don't need to go and do an Oxford and social investment program. I mean, if you can afford it, do it, but it's a whack of money that you could use for a nice holiday at some point in the next year. So I would say that definitely, like this, it's really about using the networks around there. There's a lot. I mean, there are lots of networks out there. There's lots of engagement out there. There's lots of resources, and also looking at the future trends, right? So this sector is growing year on year. I mean, the work that Big Society Capital has done and some of the others to kind of grow the market. What you're seeing is new actors starting to come into the environment in the UK. So, for example, you've got the Church of England, part of their fund has now been allocated towards social investment for the first time. And you're really going to see more of that, I think, going on as certainly kind of like new people come to the sector, new organizations come to the sector and have a different focus on where they want to put some of their money. On the foundation space, which is an area I predominantly work on. So foundations have been doing more of this work over the years. It's still quite concentrated towards a number of foundations, but what you're seeing also now is a growing trend of foundations looking at where their endowments are being held as well. So I'd recommend looking at the work the Impact Investment Institute are doing in terms of trying to help shift that larger pool of money into the space as well, and seeing the opportunities that come out of that. How you find these roles, it's about your networking, it's about you reaching out, because there isn't the traditional graduate structured roles. I think social finance is the only ones that we're doing it. So you need to be street smart and entrepreneurial in how you approach this, but also reach out to the people that work there, because most of the people I know in the sector are more than happy to talk and kind of discuss what they're doing. But it's also really thinking about your skills and how they align with the opportunities that exist out there. And as well as also just being curious and trying kind of, I guess, come out of your box a little bit, because part of the roles you're going to see aren't going to be exact fits to what you've been doing. But I think if you're curious enough and you've got that passion, you'll definitely kind of be in the right phases of doing it. So yeah, I think maybe I'll leave it there, so I can kind of leave it to like Q&As as well, so people have questions they can ask.
Great, and we knew the Q&A timing was going to be tight, but we wanted to give all the different speakers a chance to do a bit of an intro. And I will echo again what I guess Amir just said by, am I sharing? I'm sharing the whole screen, but you can see this exhibit. Well, I think the point is that if you look on the right-hand side, there are actually different types of jobs here and different types of skill sets. And most likely you will fall into just one or two of these buckets, or your next job will be one of these, but not all of these at the same time. So if you can identify where you fit, is it working with entrepreneurs? Is it working in kind of influencing in policy? Are you a partnerships person? Are you an analyst? Then that actually can accelerate your work going forward. And cut the amount of time you have. And in terms of getting experience with deals and transactions, I find that if you have some role in the sector, even if that is a business development or project role, then you get some of the exposure to whatever it may be, funds, new venture investments, structuring, etc. And that then gives you some of the credentials you need to progress. And that's where the, I guess, on purpose and other programs coming as well. But enough for me. Let's see some more questions. I know the Q&A box has been very effective at generating responses, but maybe one that we should still cover is the diversity question, which Amir has responded to. I guess, is there anyone else that wants to chime in on the question of how we can both better support entrepreneurs, particularly women and BAME entrepreneurs, as well as hiring more diverse talent? Anyone would like to chime in on that? Go ahead.
Clearly, it's an important topic, especially at the moment, but shouldn't have to have an event like Black Lives Matter to matter. There's a lot of stuff going on in the space. There's a diversity forum for social investment, which Amir chairs. There is a lot of talk, but people want the action to follow. And so lots of employers are trying to take action in terms of, one, looking at more diversity in the funds that are invested in. So looking at some examples in the space. A really good one is Hatch, who are an accelerator supporting BAME and female entrepreneurs in London, but also looking at how we can bring diversity of thought as well as diversity of background into impact investing. So we're trying to do things, I think, differently in a variety of ways. One thing that I like is recruitment, because that's where it all starts. And we've been using something called Be Applied, which makes you look at the questions, the answers to questions blind. So you have no sense of people's name. You have no idea whether they went to university even. And so it can take away a lot of this unconscious bias that we have. There's also some targets around positive recruitment, targets around diversity, gender gap, pay gaps now being reported in the sector. So I think there is some movement in the right direction. Still plenty more to be done. I think the the perception that finance is for white middle class men is still a thing, and we still need to all do what we can to raise our voices to change that.
Yeah, and I think we could all speak more about various diversity efforts. I know, or efforts to support entrepreneurs. I would recommend, if you can access it, the Conduit did an amazing panel with venture capital for BAME founders, and ClearlySo, Rod's had to drop off, but ClearlySo did actually a partnership with Hatch, among others, where they are offering staff time to support entrepreneurs. So some great initiatives on where we're still exploring what we're going to do on the Impact Agro side, but we did the cheap version of the applied platform, which was we asked people to put their cover letter in a separate document, and we read it ahead of reading the CV. But yeah, great that that startup is taken off. I've been following it, and it's good that they're able to charge top dollar now. So I digress. Let's see. I think the skill set question around private markets is still important. And I just wanted to hear maybe from you, Amir, in terms of the transaction experience that you built, or the different types of transaction experience that people can build. What advice do you have? Because what happens is, people have excellent backgrounds in maybe social issues or strategy, and they have great values, and they are perseverant, passionate, hustlers, and all these things. But when they apply for a job, they end up going against someone who has 5-10 years in investment banking or VC, and literally has relevant experience for an investment role. So how can someone who maybe has access to organizations or deals or can volunteer a bit of their time, especially now, how can someone gain some of that experience so they can at least demonstrate the right level of knowledge?
I can answer. I think I just want to caveat this fact that my answer is going to be completely based on me working in the context of the UK social investment market, in terms of the types of deal activity you'll see here, which will be very different compared to what Rod's team does and some of the others on this call do as well. I mean, very simple, just before again to the question, just to one thing to make clear, on the average social investment deal in the UK, you're looking at really small amounts. I think it's just less than 100,000 is the kind of average ticket size, generally on an unsecured basis, going to either like a charity or kind of social enterprise based structure, which can be kind of like organizations that are also quite minimally staffed, and that their own finances are quite basic in terms of what they're able to do. So on the whole, you're looking at cash flow modeling, forecasting, these kind of things there, and being able to interpret that. In terms of what people can do to get there who want to kind of showcase that skill set, naturally in any kind of interview for a role, there'll be a case study exercise type option whereby you're going to have to demonstrate that. And there's lots of ways. I mean, there's resources available online about looking at cash flows, looking at various things. There's also ways in which you can look at social investment deals, so case studies, understanding how they work. So good finance is a good route to understanding the different types of social investment deals that exist in the UK sector. And they've got lots of case studies there, as well as also understanding how social investment products work. Generally, it's quite a debt-based sector at this stage. There needs to be more diverse products, but really and truly about 90% of the UK market's all basic debt. So really being able to understand basic debt products like unsecured loans will take you a long way in terms of how that works. But really, you're not, if you work for like an average SIFI social investment fund within the UK, you're looking at quite average size deals that in terms of size, you're not looking at multi-million deals in one go. That's the rarity. So I think there has to be some level of like just right sizing your approach to like the sector and not just basing it on just purely your own experiences of, say, working in a large investment bank. For those others who don't come from a finance background, I would say tap into those resources there, but also reach out to people who work in the funds, understand a bit more about their day-to-day, how it works. I mean, they're more than happy, I think, to talk people, engaging with them, I would say. Queue loads of LinkedIn messages to all of us asking for meetings.
Yeah, everyone's LinkedIn may get a bit flooded after this call. Let's end with a quick question for Ian. We may just run 1 minute over, but I think this is pertinent. So I think in our survey, we had largest number of people with an asset management background above anything else, followed, by investment banking, wealth management. How would you describe some career paths from basically investment banking or asset management? Well, I guess either within asset management to the sustainable side, or from investment banking into the impact venture side?
Well, I suppose there's no set route because there's often a kind of transposition of skills. If you look at people doing it within, say, a large asset manager, it tends to be doing something on the side of their desk. So quite often, if you look at ESG integration, for example, it's done by having kind of champions in different business units that are effectively doing it over and above. And then that can evolve into more of a full-time role, either because they move into doing more full-time integration work across the organization, or it results into a new product that's being launched they then get the association with. And so that is often how you see this type of specialism evolve itself quite organically, kind of in a similar way that where you see people who get involved in more non-profit advisory, or they're involved in a task force of some kind that then helps them develop more specialist expertise, then manifests itself into a full-time role, for example, on something where they're more of a policy specialist. So those are the kind of routes I would say on the asset management side. In terms of investment banking into more kind of direct investing, it tends to be, as Amir mentioned, just making that step across, taking the financial hit, and then building yourself back up again, using your core financial toolkit, then developing the thematic expertise that then means you can look at something from a more holistic orientation around a valuation than purely the financials, and you build your thematic expertise. So hopefully that answers your question, but I think the key really is being able to find the time to add some additional kind of specialist knowledge to what you're doing, and then feed off that to spin it out into a more full-time role.
Got it. Well, let's wrap up then. Thanks again to all our panelists. Thanks for everyone for dialing in. I will remind you that this is going to go out with this list of openings. There's a few that have been posted in just the last couple of days. So Hatch Enterprise, as Joanna mentioned, Fair for All Finance, also in the social investment space, whereas Share Action is more in the ESG and public market space, and a more senior trustee role there. So please have a look at this. Also, I think Rathbones is a great team, as Sophie mentioned. And I will leave you with that. Have a great afternoon. Thanks to all the panelists, and also thanks to those who applied for our roles. Have a great afternoon. Bye.
Bye, thanks. Good luck, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Take it easy. Cheers, Arash. Bye-bye.
Cheers.